Hello friends, I, Ankita Dutta, project lead for the Mask series at www.tellmeyourstory.biz, welcome you to the third episode of the Mask Factor. I'm privileged to have with us author Ambi Parameswaran this evening, and we are going to discuss a word, an era, a story, and the significance of them all. Tell Me Your Story calls for submissions of short stories and poems on Mask. Also, registrations are open for the writing program Season 2 with the story prompt of the Women's Silence, which is yet another form of mask. Let me begin by introducing Parameswaran sir. Ambi M G Parameswaran is a distinguished alumnus awardee from IIT Madras and IIM Calcutta, an AMP graduate from Harvard Business School, a PhD in management CEO coach. He is a brand consultant, come coach, and founder of brandbuilding.com, a brand advisory. He is a much in demand speaker at corporate or industry events, a podcaster, and an award winning best selling author of 10 books, including Nawabs Nudes Noodles, India Through 50 Years of Advertising, Sponge, Leadership Lessons I Learned from My Clients, and Spring, Bouncing Back from Rejection. Ambi spent his 40 plus year career in corporate India with Boots Company, UDI Yellow Pages, Rediffusion Advertising, and FCB Ulka. He spent 25 years with FCB, building it into one of India's top 5 ad agencies. He has worked on iconic brands and companies such as Tata, Wipro, C, TCS, Thermax, Tata Indica, GSK, Tropicana, Amul, Nirma, LIC, Santoor, Sundrop, Abbott, ITC, etc. He has served as the president of the Ad Club Mumbai and the Advertising Agencies Association of India. Over the last 5 years, he has served as a brand coach to several small and large brands and as a mentor to exciting new startups. He has served on the board of governors of IIM Calcutta and currently serves on several corporate boards as an independent director. He now reads, writes, teaches, and coaches leaders across multiple domains. He is a guest faculty at IIM Calcutta, IIM Ahmedabad, MICA, and an adjunct professor of marketing at SPJIMR. Ambi's columns appear regularly in the Business Standard and several other business publications. Welcome on board, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me here, Ankita. Wonderful to be on this platform. So let's get going.
Yes, sir, sure. Hope you're doing well, sir. Let us start
I'm
with a
good.
very ordinary question on people, society, and their being. How do you see and interpret this whole new COVID era? I mean, a time that is insane and has been taking a toll till exhaustion.
Yeah, this is a big question. It can take a long time to answer, but I think what COVID has proven is the agility of mankind to kind of take on something and kind of bounce back. So whether it is the way students, I teach. So when lockdown was announced last year, March, within 15 days, we were geared up to start teaching online. So 15th April, our course was on, and the students were attending classes from all over India. There were 60 students, MBA students all over India attending classes. So I think the second session I asked them, how are you coping up with this? So a few of them honestly said, look, sir, it's a lot better than what we thought. We thought it's going to be really painful, but it's not as bad as we thought. But some of them said, sir, it's nothing like, being in a real classroom. So I think people have adjusted. I mean, management students, school students, all of them are adjusted to learning online. Companies have adjusted to, working from home. Of course, some people have to go to work. So factories have to run, transportation, supply chain has to work. But rest of the company's been able to work from home. So it just proves the agility of humankind and how one shock can kind of fast track an innovation which may have otherwise taken a decade. Right? We've been talking in IIM Calcutta board. We used to talk about this whole concept of desk-to-desk education 10 years ago, but no one was doing it. But now the whole world is doing desk-to-desk education. So it's just taken one pandemic to kind of leapfrog from one era to another era. So it just proves that we are all so much more agile than what we think we are. Of course, there is huge tragedy, a loss of lives, loss of livelihood, the problems associated with migrant labor. All those are really terrible, and I think it's easy for us to sit in these comfortable homes and talk about it. But I know that probably 100 million people are going to be driven down into, at least in India, are going to become below the poverty line. It'll probably take us a few years to get them out of it again. But that's a different topic for a different conversation. So one simple thing, it's shown, pandemic has shown how agile humankind can be. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, sir. When we are already talking about the pandemic, allow me to ask you, how has the pandemic spread its effect over the spheres of business, expansion, and marketing? I mean, we as students of literature are very curious to know and gain an understanding, because unless business thrives and prospers, our futures are also somewhere uncertain.
Yeah. Okay. So I think what has happened is certain sectors have continued to do well in spite of the pandemic. Sectors which could easily adapt onto work from home have been able to do very well. So whether it is IT services, of course, healthcare, edtech, health tech, fintech, all of them have done exceedingly well. Then, of course, there are certain sectors which are essentials: pharmaceuticals, consumer products, and and I sit on the board of a company which provides raw materials for making consumer products. They've done well; they've had no impact. But on the other side, companies which are in tourism, in travel, in entertainment, in media, they've all had very serious impairment of their business. Some of them have actually had to uh, run the company, pay some modicum of salaries with zero revenue, right? So it's been crushing for several industries. So it's difficult to say, difficult to paint a broad picture that all industries have been equally badly affected. Some have been actually thrived, have done well, but some have actually been crushed. And we thought January, February, all these sectors will open up. But again, with the second wave, we're now looking at probably August, September this year. So some sectors have really been affected. For example, a literature student who wants to write stories, TV production, film production, all been affected. Movies have been shut now for more than a year, right? A year and 3 months, right? I mean, will people go back to movies? I feel people will go back because there is a magic to going to a movie with a bunch of friends and sitting in a big hall and laughing and clapping and all that. See, people are missing that. They'll come back, but it'll take them time. It'll take them time. But the industry has to survive till then. So that's going to be a big challenge going forward. Yeah.
So let's talk about your book, Spring, which came out in October 2020. It is absolutely fascinating. So, is spring here only the twisted piece of metal, like as has been represented on the cover, or this spring can also be the season? Because nature does bounce back during spring, as we see every year. So, is there a correlation?
Interesting. I think I didn't see it that way. I didn't see that. At least we living in India, we don't see winter as a crushing blow. Right? And then, in truth, what you're saying is right. That in colder climates, winter is a time everything kind of goes under snow. and then winters, when snow starts melting, the spring bloom comes between the plants, the seeds which are actually lying in the sand. They come out, and the bird, and the plants come back, and the birds start flying and chirping again. So my book's title actually derived from the mechanical spring you spoke about, which is really a piece of metal which has been treated in a particular way and has been twisted and turned in and kept in a particular way that you can stretch a spring, you can compress a spring, but it'll always come back to its original shape. So I believe that human being in ourselves are also, we have a spring inside, and which can bounce back after any challenge, after any defeat, after any rejection. So uh, that's the theme of the book, Ankita.
Thank you, sir. So, as a reader reaches the final chapter of Spring, the reader has already been through a roller coaster of emotions. They must have connected to real life experiences and should have achieved the lost strength to fight back and hold ground again. So, this has been made possible through the various anecdotes arranged in a certain chronology by you. So, why did you choose those specific stories? And I would also ask you why that particular order of occurrence.
Oh, interesting. Well, I didn't think of the order that way. So let me tell you, uh, honestly, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist, right? I'm basically a guy who's worked in marketing and advertising all my life. Um, but about 5 years ago, I did my coaching certification, and then I've been coaching senior executives. So about 2.5 years ago, I was in a university. You might have heard of them. It's a wonderful university called Jagran Lake University. It's in Bhopal. It's basically focusing on a lot of media studies. So I had gone there to give a talk on my earlier book called Sponge, which is leadership lessons I learned from my clients. So I delivered a talk which was about whatever 45 minutes or so about the clients whom I dealt with, what I learned from them, many anecdotes, many interesting stories. And at the end of that talk, of course, there was a question answer, and a lot of questions in the audience. There were about 500 students. And interestingly, there was one girl who was at the back of the audience who was kind of, her hand kept staying up even after 15, 20 minutes. So in all these events, the mic slowly moves, the handheld mic. It takes time to reach the last row. So finally, it reached the last row, and she took the mic and she said, sir, you had a very good education and you had a great career and all that. You met a lot of successful people. But, we are all young people. We are starting out on our career, and we are all very scared of being rejected. Uh, so, what can you tell us about facing rejection? Now, the question she asked was almost as if to say that you are a successful person, but probably you had it easy. You had a silver spoon, and you were just lucky, and you got into all these institutes, and then you got great jobs, and you worked. It was all cakewalk for you. So I kind of said, yeah, thank you for that question. And then I started narrating a few stories. So I first said, look, please remember, I may be, in your eyes, I may look like a success, but I've had a lot of failures. I've had a lot of rejections. I've had a lot of setbacks. And I had to face them, and I had to bounce back. So I started telling them a few stories, and few stories are there in the book, including how I went for my job interview, I got rejected, and I went again to the same company, I got rejected again, and then I discovered I need to do something else, and I discovered advertising. So this, talk, my real main talk was for 45 minutes, and this particular question got me talking for about 10 minutes on rejection. I don't know what happened, but at the end of that kind of impromptu extempore speech on rejection, the whole audience of 500 got up and gave me a standing ovation. Now, my 45-minute talk did not get me a standing ovation, but this 10-minute talk got me a standing ovation. So, look, what's going on here? I mean, uh, is this something which is kind of touching the nerves of people, that they're all scared of being rejected? So it kind of stayed with me, and a month or so later, I am Calcutta for some accepting some award. Again, at the end of you have to give an acceptance speech, and we had been given a limit of I think 10 minutes to deliver an acceptance speech, and I pretty much spoke uh, the same way I spoke at Jagran Lake University. The audience was very different, right? Those were basically undergrad kids in a small town environment, and then here was I am Calcutta, the so-called MBAs, the top-notch MBAs. And again, my rejection stories kind of clicked with him, and I got a great reception from the I am Cal audience. So I said, look, there is something interesting. I want to explore this topic, and I spoke to my agent, and he said, look, I'm meeting the publisher. I'll pitch the book. I said, don't you want me to write a synopsis? He said, no, this is enough. What you told me is enough. Let me pitch it to them and let me find out. So he called back a few days later saying we are on to start writing the book. I said, look, yeah, this is you know, it'll take time to write the book. I just gave two extempore speeches. I always believe in reading a lot before I write anything. So I said, look, give me 1 year. I need to one. I've written a lot of books on branding and advertising and case studies and all that. So I said, look, this book is going to be different. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to put less about my stories in the book. So I spoke to Olympic athletes, I spoke to startup entrepreneurs, I spoke to academicians, I spoke to authors. I must have read about 20 books on resilience. I also read 30, 40 articles, and then I put this book together. Uh, the book really starts with a story about my uh, job interview at IIT and IIM. So in a sense, it starts chronologically. Like what you said, starts from the beginning of my career, and then it has several stories from my career. As you realized, out of the 20 chapters, 5 or 6 chapters are from my own stories, but the others are all from other people whom I observed, whom I spoke to, whether it is musicians, authors, academics. One thing true, which I realized, that everyone whom you think is an overnight success is not an overnight success. All the so-called successful companies, which you think was success on day one, they were not. Whether you take our own Infosys or even Amazon, they were not overnight successes. They all had to go through trial by fire, maybe for 5 years or maybe for 10 years. They could have gone belly up any moment. Right? So all these famous authors, people, publishers rejected them many, many times. So I structured it that way so that there are some personal anecdotes. There are stories from my life, from my campus life, from my life in Boots. There are some stories from my life in was FCB Ulka. Something about what happened during my early days, early career. So there are several stories, but there are a lot of stories also from other people Dr. Abdul Kalam or Amish Tripathi and so on. So it's a mix of all that, and it was not timed to come out during a pandemic, during a period when all of us are going through challenging time. It was supposed to come out in February, March of last year, and then the pandemic came and we kind of postponed the launch to October. Uh, so I enjoyed putting it together, and I think as a student of literature, you know that before you write 1,000 words, you probably need to read at least 10,000 words. So that's what I've been practicing with all my books. I read a lot. I enjoy reading, and every time I write a book, I take it as an opportunity to buy a lot more books, borrow a lot more books, and read them cover to cover and make notes and talk to people. So it's it's taxing, it's tough, but it's if you enjoy the process, it's very enjoyable. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So your book is replete with stories from different eminent personalities. I would like to ask you why you were researching, like you told us just now. Did you gain new insights? I mean, did they garnish your already magnanimous experience? Or more importantly, did you look back at your life and feel that a few rejections there should have been handled differently?
Well, of course, definitely. One, I don't. It depends on what you define as a magnanimous life. Like you said, magnanimous life. Interesting use of words. But uh, I've had I've had my share of success, and I'm fortunate that I started writing a long time back. My first book came out in 20 years ago. 20 years ago was my first book. A book of cases came out, and I've written about that in my spring. That the first time I wrote the book of cases, a friend of mine was very encouraging. He's a professor in a very big university in America, and he said, you should write this. So I wrote a few chapters, and I sent it to him. He said, I'll send it to my friend who's a professor, marketing professor in a very big university. I'll take his opinion. So he sent it to that friend, and that friend looked at it and said, look, these cases look like promotional puff pieces. Who will publish a book like this? So this friend got back to me saying, look, I'm sorry, my friend is saying no one will publish this book. So I said, okay, that's fine. Um, and I sent it to the publisher and got published. I didn't realize then that I was using one of my own. So right through when I started reading up about resilience, rejection, and I realized that a few of those things which have been captured by psychologists, I've been willy nilly using those techniques. So they say that look, when you get hit by a rejection, you need to face the rejection, right? You cannot crumble. You got to face the rejection. So one way they tell you how to face rejection is uh, you should always treat a rejection. It's not about you, right? So uh, you're not being rejected. Maybe your story has been rejected. Maybe your CV has been rejected. Maybe your idea has been rejected. So learn to face rejection, and that's something which came through when I started reading. The second is what I call process. How do you once you get rejected? Yes, you need to feel bad, right? It's human. You feel bad. And the other interesting thing which I found out is that our neural pathways in our brain actually process a rejection pretty much the way it processes a uh, uh, physical blow, right? So if someone slaps me, it pains me, right? Or if I fall down uh, and I bruise my knee, it pains me, right? So what do? I take a brufen or a crocin to relieve that pain. What psychologists found out is that when you get rejected, it's pretty much a pain like that. So your short-term solution to overcoming the rejection pain is actually taking a brufen or a crocin. I mean, that I didn't know that till I read it. So first is facing rejection. Once you are faced with the rejection, then it comes to processing rejection. How do you then handle this rejection? And so there, uh, people say, look, maybe you need to use a mentor. Maybe you need to use someone who can give you dispassionate advice about what happened. The other thing is, of course, silencing the inner critic. That's a big. I've written a whole chapter on silencing the inner critic. It's about when you get rejected or you're about to get rejected, there is an inner critic who's telling you, you don't deserve this job. You don't deserve it. So you're not good enough. You're not good enough. You're not good enough. You got to silence that inner critic. So that's another interesting thing I learned. And the third, so first is tasting, then processing, and the third is, of course, learning. So every rejection, you need to learn. You need to learn what happened and what can you do differently. If you don't, like Einstein said, it's a fool who will expect different results by performing the same experiment. If I do the same experiment, I'll get the same result. So I've captured a few stories about how I learned, or we as an ad agency learned from one rejection, and then we got our act better, and then we ended up succeeding in another case, which turned out to be a bigger success, right? So face, process, learn is the three-step formula of facing rejection.
Thank you, sir. The book deals with a very frequent yet heart-wrenching issue of rejection, and that reaffirms that failures are the pillars of success. So you have already told us the immediate cause behind why you wrote this, why you took this particular topic. But given that we are amid a COVID-affected economy that has compelled us to reject many comforts and rebuild the same again, how would this book, Spring, help people who are battling a state of fear and void?
Like I said, this book was not written keeping the pandemic affected people in mind. But I think the timing is right because what is pandemic? Pandemic is really rejecting all your plans, right? It's you might have wanted to go abroad and start on your undergrad education, but you can't go, right? You could not go last year. Hopefully, you'll go this year. So you know you've been rejected for a full year, right? Or you wanted to start a company. You faced nature has rejected your plan for a year. So what do? Do you then curse everyone around you, get angry with everyone around you? That's not going to solve the problem, right? So what I'm saying is, therefore, you need to face this rejection and without taking it personally, because you're not being singled out for this. Several 100,000 students have not been able to go to campus, have not been able to meet their friends, have not been able to say go abroad or whatever, right? So it's a mass rejection. I think therefore the book kind of arms you with that dose of how can you think through this better? How can you face this rejection better? How can you use friends, mentors to process this rejection? And what can you learn? So the simple thing is a lot of people have said, I've done nothing for 1 year. I've been sitting and fretting and fuming. That's the wrong thing to do, right? Whereas the smarter people have said, look, this 1 year I'm going to do other things, right? I'm going to learn something new. I'm going to enroll for this program. I'm going to get this certification done. I've been wanting to learn writing, like what you do in your, tell me your story platform. It's like I want to learn how to write better because I wouldn't have got this opportunity if there was college and I had to go to college and commute 1 hour and commute 1 hour back. And now I'm sitting at home and attending classes, so I've got 4 hours extra. What do I do with that 4 hours? So I'm going to enroll in this, tell me your story platform, and I'm going to learn how to write better. Smart people have done that. Smart people have been able to use this period of rejection to learn something new. And they will bounce back much higher in the coming months. Whereas those people who sat there cursing, cursing everyone, cursing the government, cursing authorities, cursing parents, cursing everyone, are going to regret it, right? They're going to regret when everything becomes better. They're going to regret. Same thing with companies. The companies which have been agile, companies have, which have sat and cursed everyone have not done well. Companies have been agile in terms of getting their production going, getting their supply chain going. And I know some companies, several good companies, have said, look, we need to get our employees to work from home. So how do you get them to work from home? So they've said, look, uh, give them laptops, give them a dongle, give them, if required, give them tables, give them chairs. So I know that, my old agency, FCB, I think, got some 1,000 people to start working from home literally within 1 week. Some people did not have the laptop, so they were given the laptop. Some people did not have good bandwidth, they were given a dongle. I'm saying thousands of people have been empowered by companies to adapt. And so companies have shown this how to become agile, how to bounce back. So if you've been sitting and cursing everyone around you, you you missed out on an opportunity, right? Whereas if you've said no, I want to learn how to write better, I want to learn how to speak better, I want to learn ukulele, I want to learn Sanskrit, I want to learn um, Mandarin. Great. There's no better time to do that than now. I mean, even now you got probably 3 to 6 months left before everything opens up. So now's the time for you to say, look, I want to learn how to write better, right? And do that. So face, process, learn. Using that, Ankita will help you face the current challenge. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. That was really insightful. So let me bring you now to the title of our talk series, The Mask Factor. So I would like to know, what is a mask according to a business coach?
Mask is something you wear to hide your true emotion, right? Hide your true identity. So it helps you, it saves you face. Like you've been rejected, you go to an interview and you said you're not getting the job. You feel like crying, but you smile and you saying thank you very much for the opportunity. You have a mask on, and the person on the other side who rejected you also has a mask on. She may be saying, actually your CV was very good, your interview was very good, but we only have a few openings, but we'll keep your CV. We will get in touch with you. That's not going to happen, right? So in business, you wear different types of masks. One day you may wear a mask to hide your rejection. One day you wear a mask to hide the fact you're rejecting someone, right? So both happen. So in business, we do wear masks uh, as much as we do in personal life. Mask helps you overcome some of these things. It helps you save face. It, like I said, it helps you silence your inner critic and say, look, I'm going to smile. He rejected me, but it's okay. I'm going to smile. I think thank you very much for the opportunity. Blah blah blah. Right? So mask is that way. It's very fungible. There's nothing like one mask, right? There is a mask you wear. You don't find the joke funny, but you still smile. That's a mask. Uh, uh, and you're with someone. Uh, you're not really enjoying their company, but you're play acting. You're smiling. So you're putting on a mask. The mask helps you overcome some of these challenges, and I think it's a very interesting device. And I mean, masks have been used by society in many, many, many different ways, right? Whether it is the old, the uh, the Zorro and the Batman wearing a mask to cover their identity, right? To the use of mask in a very grotesque situation, like the Joker mask, which some of the viewers may have seen this absolutely fascinating Spanish, uh, you know, heist story, the money heist, uh, which is amazing. I mean, those of you um, want to watch a Spanish serial about mask and how the robbers use the mask so very interestingly. I will not tell you. I don't want to do any spoiler alert here, but it's worthwhile. Very different mask. Or if you remember, there was a wonderful ad where um, Sachin Tendulkar, sees a whole bunch of kids in an open playground, and he sees their back, and he walks up to them and says, "Hey guys!" And all the kids turn around, and they are wearing Sachin mask, right? I laugh. So I think and then they all drink Pepsi or something, right? So mask was a fun, mask is scary, mask is humorous, mask hides your identity, mask is many things, right? And we use it in so many very interesting different ways. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, sir. So we are only talking about masks. So is rejection a mask? You told us. So a mask that mainly hides success. But I have a follow-up question. Is spring another manifestation of a mask as well? I mean, can I interpret spring as the mask of revitalization that encapsulates despair?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting interpretation, Ankita. That I didn't think of it, but
Thank
yeah,
you, sir.
a spring is like a mask uh, you can wear to get to a better place, right? Instead of being in the dumps, you wear the mask. It transports you to a place where you'll probably face success, right? So that's what a spring does, which helps you bounce back. Uh, in fact, this whole concept of bouncing forward, it helps you bounce forward. So yeah, I think it's a very interesting thought. I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, true. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. So a time like this, we wish should never come again, obviously. So a person who constantly searches for new meanings in every domain, I take the pleasure to ask you, as a closure to this wonderful session, that what are some of the positive lessons that this present time has taught you?
Well, this is a very tough time, right? So, uh, like I said in the beginning, uh, the positive lesson is the fact that it is, when the pandemic started, let's look at it. When the pandemic started, people said, yeah, what, 8 billion people in this world, and they said 100 million people will die, right? 100 million people have not died, right? And they said, something like 10 million people in India will die, you know, not even a fraction of that. The other thing was, you know, the flu vaccine took 10 years, right? So this vaccine is not going to come for another 3 years or 5 years, right? Within 10 months, we got the vaccine. So the pandemic has shown the tremendous spring power of human beings. The fact, what we tend to underestimate, it's a bit of a, as a literature student, you have come across the Malthusian uh, prediction that he predicted in, I think, 1740 or so, that the way global population is growing, that by the year 1800, uh, one third of the global population will die simply because there's not going to be enough food. Right? What he did not factor in was that fertilizers will come, fertilizers will improve productivity. Then, of course, tractors will come, they will improve productivity. Pesticides will come, they'll improve farm yield. And of course, finally, hybrid seeds will come and they'll improve farm yield. Today, we have a surplus of food in the world. So when pandemic came, we were going into the unknown. There were predictions of the Spanish flu killing a million people in India, etc., etc. Uh, Vaccine will take 5 years, but thanks to technology, thanks to innovation, we have some viable vaccines. Uh, Also, thanks to certain measures taken, whether it is lockdown, control, etc., etc., the human misery has been reduced. Yes, we've had problems, but it's been reduced. So it again shows the inherent resilience power of the human race. I do hope next year, this time, everything will be back to normal. The whole world would have been vaccinated, and of course, maybe we'll have to take a vaccine every year or something like that. But things will be back to a new normal. New normal will be using a lot more technology. We'll be using a lot more digital technology. This kind of webinar which you're doing, you're sitting in Durgapur, interviewing me. I'm sitting in Mumbai. Well, amazing. This You wouldn't have imagined this to have happened 2 years ago, but this has happened. This is something precious which we need to hang on to, and we need to allow this to flower more. So hopefully, on the other side of the pandemic, we will see a lot more this kind of innovation to continue to flower and make information, make education available to a lot of people whom it was inaccessible till yesterday. I've been using Zoom for board meetings for 5 years ago, but no one knew about Zoom. Right? No one knew about Zoom till 18 months ago. Now everyone, including school kids, know there is something called Zoom. Right? Imagine that. I mean, it's amazing. So this is power of what they call shock, right? So the oil shock, drove the global automobile industry towards more fuel efficient vehicles. In 2 years, they were producing fuel efficiency twice that of vehicles before oil shock. Similarly, this pandemic has given us a shock, and hopefully, we will take something positive out of it. Yeah? Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. So at Mask Factor, we are discussing whole new perspectives. So thanks a lot again, Parameswaran sir. Thank you for this very insightful conversation and also for your time this evening. To everyone, let me put a reminder. Tell me your story, calls for submissions on Mask, and registrations are open for the writing program season 2 with the story prompt of Women's Silence, which is yet another form of Mask. We hope to hear from you. Until then, let us all try to stay well, stay safe, and though distanced, let us stay together. Good night.
Thank you, Ankita. Thank you, Coral, for inviting me here. All of you, stay safe, stay well, but stay happy. So thank you very much, and God bless.